And then to see the mole move in kindness towards his enemy, the fox, and how that brought such a softening. It diffused anger, his kindness. Yeah. He risked to show kindness and love to his enemy.
Yeah, what's the proverb? A kind word
turns away wrath.
With God, there is always more. More love, more life, more freedom. Welcome to Zoweh's Exploring More with Michael Thompson. C.S. Lewis once wrote, "Our Heavenly Father has provided many delightful inns for us along our journey, but He takes great care to see that we do not mistake any of them for home." Join me and the team as we explore the kingdom together, discovering the deep truths and offering encouragement for the journey. There is always more.
Hey friends, Michael Thompson here, and you're going to see in this episode on kindness and strength that there are those days. And I think this episode actually ends with Robin talking about one of those days. There are days when things just don't work the way you want them to or hope they would. So our technology, we had some glitches in the matrix, we'll call it. And so just want you to know that, be warned and push through. It's not you, it's not your stuff, it was our stuff. So as we offer you this last installment of our podcast series on kindness and strength, I hope you'll enjoy it. And I probably ought to say I hope you'll endure it, but I think it's really good. I look forward to unveiling this on the Exploring More podcast. Here we go. Hello, friends and allies. This is Michael Thompson, and you are on the Exploring More podcast. And I'm excited. We're continuing our series on kindness and strength and kindness. And I get to have Robin, my wife, in the studio today. Maybe one of the kindest persons I know.
I have my...
You do have your kindness shirt on. And but yeah, I was looking forward to when I was thinking about this subject and we were preparing and talking in show notes and stuff. This was, I think, a good idea to have you come and be a part of this. And so we're looking forward to kind of rounding out kindness and strength with you today. We are about 30 days away from the Heart of Warrior Encounter at Sharp Top Cove, the Young Life Camp just north of Atlanta in Jasper, Georgia. And why don't you take a look at this promo, and we'll be right back.
It was up at one of the old Top Gun events in the mountains up in Virginia. And I remember just really feeling like I was in the presence of so many men that had such a connection with God. That what's wrong with me? Why doesn't God ever talk to me? Like all these guys are talking about this great experience. All that was in my head was, God, I need to hear you. I need to hear your voice. I just need a light or something from you. And I look down in the stream, there's literally a yellow flashlight sitting in the bottom of the stream. I'm not making this up. And I sort of made this condition with myself, if I pick up that flashlight and it works, this is real. Dude, I swear, I picked up that flashlight, flipped it, it was a pelican light covered in moss. It shone a light as clear as could be. And I kind of heard, felt, experienced, I hear you, I see you, and I've got something for you. It was just amazing.
Join us at the Heart of a Warrior Encounter October 5th through 8th at Sharp Top Cove in Jasper, Georgia. To find out more, head to www.zoweh.org/events.
All right, welcome back to the Exploring More podcast. I love that Shane. I love Shane Ruffing, and I love that Shane Ruffing video with the. I called him. I called him after it dropped, kind of, and we sent it out. And it was funny. He got calls.
Did he?
He goes,
I bet he did.
A big long text, bro. You got to let a brother know when that's going to drop. And I told him, he knew when, but all of a sudden he was getting some contact.
Inundated with.
some texts and calls and stuff.
It's a great story. It's an incredible story.
It is. So I called him. I did a prank call. I called him. I said, hey, I'm looking for Mr. Shane Ruffing. This is Jeff Jefferson from Pelican Pelican Lights International, and we heard about your story. We saw it online. It's kind of going viral in other countries, and we'd really like to talk to you about being a spokesperson. So, anyway, I don't know.
I bet he recognized your voice.
I don't know if he believed it, but it was funny. It was really funny.
Pretty early on.
So, Robin, like I said before we broke into the Sharp Top piece, we're talking about kindness and strength, and I love that they're in the same phrase, how strong kindness can be. And you, I think, are a kindness expert. I've known you as a kind person, a kind soul, all of our relationship. And just you're known for your kindness in the ways that you operate in Zoweh, on the team, family and friends. It wouldn't be unfair to say kindness is your middle name. Your picture right there.
When you told me, when you said, "Hey, I'd like to have you on the podcast," the topic is going to be kindness. Mm-hmm. And do you remember that was my first line? Yeah. Kindness is my middle name. And then the funny part about that, the irony was literally within 2 hours, I found myself behind the wheel of a car.
Oh, yeah. That's not your kindest seat, actually.
That is not my I am not kind behind the wheel of a car.
I was not going to say anything about that, but the fact that you brought that
I'll
up.
throw myself under the bus. Yeah.
So, anyway.
I'm
We're
learning
working on it.
To be kind. And what kind is, kindness is, and what it's not, and what I've thought it was, and what it's not, and the role of kindness.
We're not talking about just behind the wheel. We're talking about in general.
Yes.
In our journey with God, the significance of what kindness is, and what it can be, what it can be when we're living in this story with others, and I think that's a great part of why it's so good to have you with and talking about kindness. SJ and I got to look at Charlie Mackesy and his short story that became a short film, and so all the history of that is in the past couple of podcasts about this kindness and strength, but. We got to show the trailer and show some of the different excerpts from The Boy, the Mole, The Fox and the Horse. So I'd love to just get your reaction, your response to that illustration, that story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's such a beautiful, powerful picture of kindness and love and acceptance and belonging. There's so many themes. Kindness being such a major theme of it.
Yeah.
And you saw immediately with the boy his kind way, his kind heart. And he was so open and so compassionate. And the way he moved, with the little mole, and then you saw. So that was just was kindness upon kindness,
oozing with kindness,
and that the idea that kindness begets kindness. You see that, and I think that's one of the ways of the kingdom and the ways that God designed it. We've talked a lot about that recently, and then to see the mole move in kindness towards his enemy, the fox, and how that brought such a softening. It diffused anger, his kindness. Yeah. He risked to show kindness and love to his enemy.
Yeah, what's the proverb? A kind word
turns away wrath or anger.
And so I just thought of it, and you said diffuses. It changes the posture of the fox. It shifts
the energy, doesn't it? Yeah. It really did. And I think that is what each one of us and what our world needs more of. Can you imagine what our world would be like if we were more kind and loving and open and
Yeah, there's a reason why the word is loving kindness.
Yes.
It is a powerful way. That's the word, powerful way. It's a powerful way.
Yes.
Way to operate, way to see, way to offer, way to share.
Yes.
I think it's one of the things, when you went very intentionally after the listening guide, I believe I need you to answer or add some color to it. I believe very much that so much of our listening guide that you crafted and is part of Zoweh is so that people can offer kindness.
Yes. Yes. I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking, what is a recent story of how I experienced kindness? And I right away went to a few days ago, sitting with Sherry and Maggie at lunch, and sharing a story that was weighty for me, that was heavy on my heart, and how they listened, how they leaned in and held my story was so kind. They joined me in it.
But they realized that they had missed something. Is this the story I'm thinking of? That they, in that moment, you weren't with them in the direction of
no, this was something else.
Another story.
We have lots of opportunities to listen and right. to each other and for repair and kindness and listening. But this one, they just were simply listening and joining me in it. Yeah. And what I felt was, and what felt so kind was, they didn't try to fix it. They didn't try, they didn't interrupt. Yeah. They didn't ever try to they didn't make it about themselves. Oh, Robin, that reminds me of when that happened to me, I blah, 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 blah. They just simply joined me in it. And then when I was finished sharing, they asked some really kind questions. Yeah. And I felt their kindness. I felt known. And because they know me and knew therefore the context of the story, they could engage me there really well. So that felt so kind to me, and it felt healing to me. Yeah. It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, to be tended to kindly. I think of Brene Brown and so much of her work and so much of the listening, how you listen and how you engage with another person, how kind that can be, what an effect that can have. There was a story you told me about just the other day of you were literally at a lunch counter. The person behind the counter recognized the person you were with and just burst into tears and said what? When I was hurting.
Yes. Later, when that person could regain composure, literally 10 minutes later, came over to our table and said, I want you to know that this person, I was in a situation very alone. It was the hardest 2 months of my entire life. And this person was the only one who was kind to me. And he was weeping. Yeah. He was weeping. Yeah. And you could see the impact that her kindness had on him. It was beautiful. It was beautiful to witness.
Bizarre in the daily goings on.
Yes.
To boom. Here's what kindness meant.
Yes.
To that person.
It was profound. It was profound impact.
For both of them. What a privilege for that person to share that and then to receive months and months later. Not the other day.
1 year.
But a year later.
It had been a year.
They had sowed kindness.
Yes.
And it really, God then brings a reaping of validation and affirmation and love and thanks and gratitude. It's just a beautiful, it's a reality of how this works. So, so I've got another clip about kindness, and this one is from, of all places, The Lord of the Rings, which is one of my favorite stories. And so I would love to get your reaction to Gandalf and, how would you say her name? Galadriel. Gandalf and Galadriel are talking, and this is in The Hobbit. Some people may not recognize that, but she is kind of the queen of the elves, if you will. She is a very powerful and a very important character in the whole of the story, Galadriel. And then Gandalf, obviously the wizard, he's pretty powerful himself. And so there's this mission going on. Again, this is Bilbo Baggins and the Hobbit, and they're trying to, prior to Frodo and his story. But anyway, there's this encounter, though, in Rivendell where she asks Gandalf, why are you engaged in this? Why the Hobbit? Why are you involved? And so that's kind of the context I can give for this story. But let's listen to what they say and watch what they say. I think you're going to cue this up for the listeners in the program, so we'll watch it and then you can comment.
You must be careful. Mithrandir, why the halfling?
I do not know. Saruman believes that it is only a great power that can hold evil in check. But that is not what I have found. I found it is the small things, everyday deeds of ordinary folk that keeps the darkness at bay. Simple acts of kindness and love. Why Bilbo Baggins? Perhaps it is because I'm afraid. And it gives me courage.
Do not be afraid, Mithrandir. You are not alone. My boy Ilialiathon.
So,
I love his words.
The gospel according to
Gandalf.
Lord of the Rings and Gandalf, right? And there's so much truth in that.
Yes.
So many truths in that. But go ahead.
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
I love that he said that some believe it is only through great power that evil
Is kept at bay.
is kept at bay. And he said, but I have found that it's the small, simple acts of kindness and love that that hold the darkness at bay. And I love that you know, in all the battle, in all of the battle and all the war, that what if it could be simple acts of kindness and love that can literally change a person's heart?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thought. I believe that is what Jesus was about. I believe it's why he came. I believe it's how he lived and the way of the kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. I thought, even just watching it just now, just the way she's, questioning him is kind. And then the way she moves towards him with her words and the touch, a kind touch, an encouraging word. You're not alone. I mean, it's a very, very powerful, lot going on in there. And SJ and I were talking about it too. There is, maybe get your thoughts on the difference between kindness and niceness. And how I think people can get those confused in some ways. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I certainly in my own story growing up and in the Christian community and thus in my family too, when I heard kind, I equated it with niceness and also with compliance.
No.
And with not making waves. Kindness really was more about not rocking the boat and almost like placating to people. And, making allowances for, which can be very kind and loving in certain moments, but in others, it can actually be a way we might be allowing an abusive relationship.
Right.
So, I think that I believed to be kind was not to have boundaries and just to give way all the time. Yeah. I never knew otherwise. And then as an Enneagram 9, that fit with my keeping the peace and kindness just seemed to work for me, and it kept it kept the peace.
Yeah.
It kept harshness away. It kept punishment at bay.
That's a good difference between, like, if niceness is about keeping the peace, I don't think kindness has to be about that.
Right.
I think kindness actually can be confronting.
Yes.
It's the way in which you're confronting.
Right.
I think kindness has, if Gandalf is right, if this is a characteristic of Jesus, then, man, there's conflict surrounding him. And he's not as much creating it, but it's yet he knows he's going to wrinkle some folks by what he's doing and what he's saying and how he's kind of putting bringing the kingdom, bringing the New Testament, bringing, what God's really like, because there really was in the Old Testament, it was a fear of God. And the New Testament is near with God and trying to lift and take everything, out of the way of intimacy with God. And so it's just interesting to see kindness as a powerful and strong thing, and learning even how to, as part of the fruits of the Spirit, it's a part of those things, and how even in a harmony, patience, how kind that is to be patient, loving, how kind that is to be loving. Like we said earlier, to listen, how kind that is. Lots of practical applications, if you will, for kindness. And, back to Gandalf, if great power is what keeps evil at bay. What I think it's the kindness and love of everyday folk, caring for each other, that has an effect. So, I think that's a good, a part of this that's somewhat confusing, and then trying to make sense from niceness to kindness. So, how would somebody go about learning how to be kind or practicing kindness? Where would you say? Where would they start? Where should they start?
That's a great question. And I was thinking this morning in yoga that as I was laying on my mat and so tired, and I started to do like this to my hair in a way that I have learned is a way of offering kindness to myself.
To myself, it's a good answer.
And I thought about this podcast and the subject of kindness, and I thought, we really can't truly offer loving kindness to others in a lot of situations. Sometimes it's just easy to be kind. I can be kind to a salesperson at Whole Foods, and that's not hard. Mm-hmm. But there are other times kindness there is a strength, like you said. It requires something of me, and it's not always in the most convenient moments.
Right.
But it's really hard to do if I can't be kind to myself. Mm-hmm. If I haven't learned how to tend to care for and love Robin and young Robin. That's a part of my story and a part of my journey only in the past recent years that, as you know, that we're learning, that I'm learning. And it makes sense because Jesus said, love others as you love yourself. There is a loving ourselves, the kindness and the compassion and acceptance and care that changes me, that changes us at a cellular level, core level, and it changes our brain. When we experience care, when we experience kindness from others, towards ourselves, God is in all of that. Yeah. But so I find it very difficult to truly be able to offer compassion and kindness and care to others, especially when it's hard, if I haven't learned or am learning how to offer that to myself.
Right.
That's huge.
Yeah, for me.
It's been huge for me.
For me, one of the places that made a huge difference was seeing God as kind.
Yes.
Where I grew up and how I grew up, and that's just won't go into all that, but that wasn't one of the characteristics I had. Now, I might have known it or heard it biblically, but for me to experience the Father as a kind, strong, good, caring Father who wanted to tend to, like you were saying, tend to parts of me that were not treated kindly in my story.
Yes.
And then to your point, how I was trained then to not be kind, but rather judgmental, us and them, harsh. We and they, Christians and non-Christians, denominations, our organization versus others. We got a lot of training, in those spaces. And so to receive that, if it's the kindness of God that leads to repentance, or we might say to unsubscribing from things, to not letting them have sway or weight or authority in our lives, kind of the getting things off of us or out of us that are impeding in some way. That I believe you can get down the road by yourself, but I think there's some things that you need a shepherd, you need a teacher, a counselor, a father, a mother, mother heart of God. You need attention from something even outside of you, greater than you, that can speak to you about how they, Trinity, see you. Mm-hmm. And so that began to kind of change some of my self-perceptions and self-talk to bring God into that place of a conversation about me, because I was very familiar with the critic in me, the critic of me that is me, and I think the enemy who would love nothing more than to just whisper unkind things, very unkind, critical, shame, guilt, fear, those kinds of things.
Yeah,
accusation, diminishment. all disgust. I mean, so many things that are unkind and can then have a way of kind of fostering an unkind way in me. So anyway, that I think that's a great answer. I think there's a big practical. So before we leave that, I think seeing it is a really good beginning. Awareness and awakening to what am I listening to? What kind of voice? What kind of what would I say? What kind of commentary am I subject to? If you start there, is it kind? Then it's good. It's likely God. God is in it. If it's unkind, something's not right. So just that practical paying attention. Emotions have thoughts as well as feelings to them. Obviously, thoughts have emotions and feelings to them. I think anybody who wants to explore this has got to start first with paying attention to where what is going on. What's it sound like? What's it feel like?
And just because something feels unkind doesn't necessarily mean it is unkind. It could be landing in a place of a wound, something that is familiar.
Yeah.
It could be a kindness, but I am, because of my grid, because of how I have been shaped in my story and wounding, it might feel.
Yeah.
I might go to defensiveness because it might bump up against that tender place that might cause me to not see it as a kindness. So just because it doesn't feel like, just because it feels unkind or just because it feels kind, you know what I mean?
That's a great
doesn't
point.
necessarily mean
that's a great point.
That's how
it was intended. Because if you're going to tell somebody the truth about how you feel or what you think, and you feel like you need to let them know. I mean, we've seen this in parenting much more in the last decade or so of our parenting than some of the heavy-handedness and the controlling that we exercised in the first decade or two. So there's a real value to what you're sharing, that it may not be easy to hear. That doesn't necessarily mean it's unkind.
right.
And it may have some truth or be really true, and that person's offering it in kindness. And so, asking questions, I think, could be another great part of where would you start? Now, this is a starting point for the brave. How do you see me? Do you see me as a kind person? That would be a big dialogue to get into with anybody. You got to be careful who you ask that of, but you're trying to just enter into this inventory, if you will, What is going on in me? What are the voices that I hear? What's the feelings that I have? And starting to kind of, I think, bring this lens of kindness to them, kindness and unkindness. That would be
curiosity to be curious about
it. A good place to start.
and asking the Spirit of God.
We've got a little bit of time left. Would you swing at this word that we were introduced to a few years ago, benevolence? Benevolent detachment. Yeah. What comes to mind when it's not a word that you hear in the common day to day? Oh, he's really benevolent.
Right.
Or,
right.
Man, I love how benevolent she is.
Right.
But,
well, I first heard the term benevolent detachment when John Eldridge was talking about it. And was it Get Your Life Back, I believe.
The Pause app.
And the Pause app, both because they were linked.
Very big, yeah.
And that was very helpful for me to hear about, especially as I was coming face to face, or it was being more revealed to me about my codependency. I was recognizing more of my codependent ways and how I move in relationship in ways move in relationships in ways to be okay. And it's a way to arrange for my belovedness, arrange for relationship, arrange for belonging, arrange for security. Are you okay with me? So hearing about benevolent detachment for me was an aha thing. It was the idea of in a situation, in a relationship, of being able to release a person or something.
Yeah.
That's
the detach part, to release.
Yes, but benevolently detach, because we can detach from lots of things. We can detach from life. We can detach from a lot of different things, healthy and in self-protective ways that have served us well in wounding.
Instead of arranging for love, now you're arranging to not be hurt.
Right.
So there's a lot of detachment.
Right. That
Avoidance.
We needed as a little to oftentimes to survive. So we would detach or dissociate in order to protect. It's one of the ways God wired our bodies and ourselves that we're able to do that to keep ourselves alive and safe. Now, however, those things don't serve us well. Many of those things don't serve us well, those ways of moving and those styles of relating. So to be able to, I think of it as a mom, and if I am in an unhealthy way, I find myself being concerned about one of our girls in a way. I wonder if she's okay. I wonder did I hurt her? Is she okay with me? Is she moving in benevolent detachment for me can look like releasing her to God, releasing and trusting. God, you are moving in her life. I can pray for her and trust and believe. I know that you are moving in Ashley, in Hannah, in Abby. And I don't have to hold so tightly and try to make it happen. Right. But a lot of that has to do with fear, an underlying fear of what is going to happen to them or what's going to happen to me if they don't respond in a certain way that I need them to.
The projection you just described, if I can just pull out of that and say the projection you just described of how you have to do that for yourself, now you have to do that. You project that into then others' stories, and now I've got to be responsible for that in them as well.
Their emotions.
Yeah. So I mean that secure attachment with God is something that many have not experienced, don't experience, because if you do, it settles things. And so that's a whole other great conversation.
That's a whole other conversation on attachment, right?
And family systems and all kinds of things that go.
I'll come back and love to talk about some of that.
Let's do that. We should do that. So, but back to benevolent detachment. I think that word benevolent being kind and kindness. That's what that means.
Yes.
And it's a goodness you can do for yourself to detach from control, fear, responsibility, kind of the overboard, all of that idea of the overboard ways. Not that you don't want to be responsible for your kids' well-being or how they might be feeling. You want to care about that, but you're not taking that responsible. They are the verdict on me, and I, dadgummit, I'm going to get in there and make sure this happens according to my will.
Right.
So
I'm not responsible for their emotions. I'm not responsible for. I can only be responsible for my side of the street. And benevolent detachment feels like healthy boundaries. And
So two characters I want to end on, and we can have some comments about both. One, a fictional character that we loved and probably would say one of the great things about this character is how kind they were. Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It's just, I think it's part of what all the Emmys, all the awards, and I know he's not everybody's flavor of soup. But I mean, for all those who do love him, and you ask them, why do you love him? I think one of the top 2 or 3 answers would be he's kind. He's quirky. But how he does all of that, how he moves in his world, and later in the series, you start to hear more of his story, and I mean, he's not perfect, but he's kind.
Right. And it's interesting to think of the both and he is incredibly like over the top positive.
Yeah.
Like that kindness that is that nice, almost that niceness we were talking about, and that positivity that was a little bit unbelievable. But he used that to, I think, partially to keep people from getting too close to him. But his true, when you saw his true self, Ted's true self, he was kind in the most genuine of ways, and he was true. He was honest, and he was.
And what I love, go ahead. And he was.
Well, being true. Well, we can talk about that in a minute.
Okay. What I love about his kindness was its infection.
Right.
I mean.
Well, the kindness begets kindness.
That's right. The owner can't do it to him anymore. She's trying to get even with her ex-husband, and just drive the club to the, to the bottom. Yeah. And his kindness
wins her over.
Brings her the biscuits every day, and Keely and just across the board, you see through the seasons and through the episodes the effect of kindness. Okay, so that's one character.
Right. And there's a wisdom too in there. There's a strength for sure, like we're talking about. You're talking about the strength and kindness. Yeah. And intentionality that's beautiful. Yeah. There. Yeah.
And then
if you can get past the bubbly, over the top initial niceness.
Okay. So the last character, and maybe the most significant one we could talk about, is Jesus. And
in The Chosen.
And The Chosen is a great depiction of a character that's true.
Yes.
That's real. That's nonfiction. And, how those writers and they have taken the Gospels and brought forward the character of Jesus to be seen and felt and experienced in his relating to a variety of people in that first century. So thoughts about the chosen Jesus and just Jesus. I mean, maybe our own experiences with him. Because I've experienced the Jesus that I know and that knows me as extremely kind to me.
Yeah. It brings tears when I think of, I so want Jesus to be that Jesus in The Chosen. And I believe he is, if he's that good. And because who he is just the kindness in his eyes. And I'm shocked. I'm stunned, not shocked. I'm stunned at how that portrayal of Jesus has shaped my intimacy with him. On the daily. I picture his eyes when I pray. I picture his face when I pray, because that picture connects me to the heart of God like nothing else has before. But speaking of his kindness, what I found myself doing when I watched The Chosen was I was riveted when he engaged with people. I don't think I told you this. Riveted. How is he going to engage, especially in dicey situations? Like I think of a man kept coming to him and he was really pissed off about something. And the couple, maybe related to the wedding at Cana, just different, and not to mention the religious people, the Pharisees and all that. But the face-to-face with people, when it got dicey, I hung on his every word and face, because I don't know how to do that well. Like, I'm learning how to do that well. I wasn't raised to know how to engage well in conflict situations or difficult situations, or just how to be true with loving kindness and true. How to be true. Integrity is being true. And each time he was both kind and strong. He didn't mince words. He didn't use a lot of words. He was honoring. I noticed he was honoring to each human being. Such honor, such kindness. But he was true. Like, no, it's not for now. Or this is why this. Whatever it was. I was so taken with how he honored the person, and there was such loving kindness, and how true he was, that integrity, that integration of body, soul, spirit, kindness, strength, love, all of it, that integrity. And that's how I want to be.
Yeah. If you wanted to see kindness in 25 different relationships and 25 different encounters in 25 different ways, I would say watch The Chosen with kind of those goggles on, those lenses.
All types of people.
Because it's kind after kind, even the confrontational.
Yes.
Even the way he's handling critics and those who are not happy with him.
Right.
And I love what you said about imaginative prayer and visualizing and seeing and experiencing him. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. The more that I've experienced that, the kindness of Jesus, the kindness of God, that kind of love and attention, the more I feel like I'm becoming that version.
Yes.
How I'm uniquely set up in this world to bear his image. In kindness. I know maybe there's a whole series on the fruit of the Spirit and what each one of those fruits weigh and how important they are, but the kindness piece seems to be I started the series with it seems to be a training space that I'm in with the Holy Spirit, and I'm seeing it, I'm feeling it, hearing it, watching it, even more attuned to unkind commentary or unkind judgments. Just the things that can come up and no, I don't really think that way or feel that way. That's not true. I think there's a way the enemy can work, even where judgments and unkindness and things can be. It's almost like they're almost tied up and done, and then they're given to you to finish. And you can go, wait, no, I really don't feel that way or think that way or believe that about that person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Go ahead.
And there could be a posture of kindness towards ourselves in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, instead of I screwed up again, I did it again. And then all the words, all the accusations, all the shame that might come. Yeah. But instead, like yesterday, I was fit to be tied. I had a day yesterday, and I was not kind. I just, even if only in my head, I was not I was not exuding kindness. And I remember driving home and having the opportunity to just, Rob, you missed that one. You missed that, babe. Mm-hmm. But it was a posture of kindness, not like whipping myself, but, and that has a different energy, like I want to do that differently. Jesus, I'm sorry. I didn't. That was a miss of a whole day.
It's funny when we'll wrap up, you bring that up. There's a few films out there that have kind of repeat days, where the character gets to do the same day,
Groundhog Day,
and over and over and over again. And I'll bet you, and Groundhog Day is one of them, but the ones that we got to look at this. Maybe this is my homework, but that character tries all kinds of manipulating and different things, goes to satire and sarcasm, with the different people he encounters. I'm thinking of Bill Murray and Groundhog Day. But in the end, the day that starts leading to the day that leads to the day that the Groundhog Day ends. Yeah, and as that ended quite abruptly, and here I am to just say that sometimes technology is great and sometimes technology isn't your friend. And so, to finish my thought after Robin had shared at the end of this episode, because we did have some technical difficulties right there, was days like that Robin was experiencing. We've all had them. It reminds me of Bill Murray in Groundhog Day. And I wonder if we could do do-overs, if we could have a day again, or again and again and again. Would we turn to the manipulation, and would we turn to the self-serving ways that his character did in Groundhog Day? But eventually, he turns to kindness. And all the people in the town, are thanking him in the final day of Groundhog, the final episodes or scenes of the movie, And so it just, I think it bolsters our point that I want sooner than later to act in kindness and to see the effect, the strength, the impact of kindness. And so what a great episode to kind of end our season 2 with, and this is the final episode of season 2, and we'll see you October 10th for the opening of season 3 as we step into a new journey together. SJ, myself, Zoweh guys, Zoweh girls, all of our friends and allies in the new season 3 coming up. So thank you for tuning in again to the Exploring More podcast with Michael Thompson. Blessings and courage.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Exploring More. The landing page for this podcast is zoweh.org/podcast. That's ZOWEH.org/podcast, where you can find the show notes and various platforms to which we broadcast. You can also find us and the Life of More by visiting Zoweh on YouVersion Bible app, Right Now Media, our Facebook page, and Zoweh on Instagram and Twitter. Remember, with God there is always more, and you were made for more.